My guest today understands that at a deep level, Paul Larche is a media pioneer, Hall of Fame broadcaster, founder of Larche Communications. He built 5 radio stations from scratch and spent 4 decades studying what actually moves people. And I'm so excited. We're talking today about something most leaders underestimate. Emotion is not the soft side of the business.
Was the worst year for a lot of us for our mental as well as physical health. So joining us this morning is best-selling author, coach Lisa Goldenthal.
Hello and welcome. I'm Lisa G, your host. You're at the top of your game, yet the game is changing faster than ever. Strategies that got you here aren't the ones that'll keep you here. The pressure is relentless, and the fear of obsolescence looms large. That's why I'm here. Welcome to the new podcast series, Disrupted: How to Be Gritty and Unlock Performance in Business, Mindset, Wellness, and Success to help you master disruption.
Thanks for coming, and I'll see you soon. Welcome back to WholeCEO. We are living in the most data-driven moment in business history. AI predicts, algorithms optimize, dashboards track everything, and yet most buying decisions are still emotional. My guest today understands that at a deep level, Paul Larche is a media pioneer, Hall of Fame broadcaster, founder of Larche Communications. He built 5 radio stations from scratch and spent 4 decades studying what actually moves people. And I'm so excited. We're talking today about something most leaders underestimate. Emotion is not the soft side of the business. Let's dive in. Did I say your name right, Paul?
You sure did. And thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
Well, I'm so thrilled for this conversation. Everybody's so excited about AI, but emotional intelligence is still important. So let's dive into your book and the old brain, new brain concept that you talk about. Can you break it down in simple
Sure,
terms?
absolutely. Yeah, actually the reason I wrote the book is, as you mentioned, I was in the broadcast business, and we owned uh, an advertising agency, a marketing agency as well, digital agency. And one of the challenges that we'd run into all the time was explaining to clients who didn't understand branding and marketing how important emotion is when it comes to making connections with people, particularly from a branding point of view. And they would come and they would want us to promote their facts, their figures, the features that their product or service has, but they weren't talking about the actual emotional, personal benefit that people will get out of using those things. And that's what really drives not only marketing and advertising, but the way we make decisions. So I came up with this metaphor years ago of the old brain and new brain, and it's loosely based on studies that have been done by neurologists, and it really breaks the brain down into two parts. The old brain is exactly what it sounds like. It's the older part of our brain, the limbic system and the brain, stem, and we call that the lizard part of the brain because we share that same part of the brain that lizards have. And the newer brain, the neocortex, is something that has been around relatively, it's been around for a long time, but in relative terms, it's new for us. And that's where we do our reasoning. And the metaphor of this, and it's on the cover of my book, is that the new brain is a small gear, and you just behind your forehead, and the old brain is the bigger gear behind it. And the old brain really runs the show. Like we are very much emotional people. We run on emotion, and then we'll justify with fact. That's just what comes from the fact that we, through evolution, which is, we're an evolutionary masterpiece when you think of it. But a lot of these things that kept us alive now are kind of working against us when you talk about marketing and advertising and AI, because that's just the de facto way of the old brain to work.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, even from a personal development standpoint, when you get quote unquote triggered about stuff, then, the old brain, the fight or flight responses that are usually getting triggered, not just in marketing and advertising, but this is like a course in marketing. I'm so glad we're having this conversation right now. So, why do logical arguments fail even when the data is strong?
Well, again, because the old brain is running the show, and that is by design. As I mentioned, it's from an evolutionary point of view, it kept us alive for or our ancestors, or frankly, any mammals and animals for tens of thousands, millions of years. But its goal really is it gets down to two things. It's survival and it's reproduction. That's really what the old brain is trying to do.
Right.
So really what all the characteristics of the old brain are built around that. So there's certain things that it tries to do just by the fact that it wants to stay alive and flourish. And one of those things is it loves simplicity. It loves speed and simplicity because that conserves energy. It doesn't require a lot of brain power to make quick decisions. It looks for like immediate gratification as well. It doesn't like complex problems. It's very resilient to change. It's selfish, and that's people might not say they're selfish, but inherently a lot of the old brain is selfish because that kept us alive for many, many, many years as part of our evolution. But we're also very tribal. Like we need to work and cooperate with others. And but again, that there's that balance between the selfishness and tribal. It's also, it likes fairness. It wants to be treated fairly. But other factors that we have in the old brain is it's vain and thin-skinned. And again, these were at one point very good for us in terms of survival because it would move us up in the hierarchy. But again, today it sometimes works against us. And the other thing too is it really needs to resolve. It can't wait around, and that's what comes back to simplicity. So it likes to make quick decisions, and that's the world we live in today. We're presented with something, and we make a quick decision, and we just assume that decision is correct, or our thoughts on are correct, and we tuck it away. The new brain, conversely, is really where we can reason. This is where language is. This is where we can stop, put the brakes on. I call it changing gears between the two gears and think things
Yeah.
through a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but most people don't do that automatically because the new brain's de facto method of operation is to be a justification for an old brain decision. And
Yeah.
I talk about Jonathan Haidt wrote a great book. I talk about it in my book, and he uses a metaphor like based on this as well. And he called it the rider and the elephant, where the elephant is the old brain and the rider is the new brain. But if that old elephant decides he's going to go in a different direction, there's not much the rider can do. But he really positioned the rider kind of as the press secretary. When you think of a
I
press
love it.
secretary, is that they'll justify any old brain decision because that's their de facto mode. So, uh, you know, with advertisers and marketers, when we were talking to them, my line was, "We buy on emotion and we justify with fact." So you can own 100 pairs of shoes and you can justify why you need every pair of those shoes. You can, I'm a guitar player. I have 25 guitars. I don't, do I need 25 guitars? No, but I can justify why I have every one of them. So that's that position between these two gears. And once people start understanding that we do run on emotion, that our new brain really will just back up what the old brain saying, unless we put the brakes on, unless we actually really want to say, listen, I'm going to think this thing through. And this is where, again, critical thinking, metacognition, which is the concept of thinking about thinking, comes into play. And that's the one thing that we're sorely lacking right now in our world, is we don't put the brakes on and do a bit of a critical thinking.
And emotional intelligence is clearly lacking.
Absolutely. They're both tied together.
They've gone back
Yeah.
10 years. They need to come back. And
They have, yes, absolutely.
in today's AI-driven marketing world, we're over-optimized logic and under-investing in emotion. And I believe that what you're saying about marketing still holds true, that
Yeah.
people make decisions on emotion and back it up with logic. Is that the quote?
That's absolutely correct, and we see it every day in life. And most and these emotional decisions are usually tied to. In the book, I talk about kind of three parts of our body. We have the heart, which is pretty much that has to do with love, bonding, those types of things. But I also talk about the gut, which is really emotions that go back to when food was scarce, and we have a tendency to want to gather and hold on to a lot of things, and most of our closets today are filled with a lot of clothes that we hardly ever wear. It's the 80-20 principle, because that's built into us, that we want to gather and hoard things, and that's the gut part. And then I also talk about, frankly, I call it the privates, or the private parts of our body, which is the sexual reproduction parts, which
Yes.
drives everything from status, how we want to be perceived, to ego. And because again, those are all things that at one point you wanted to be the king of the jungle, or you wanted to be hold that highest place of hierarchy, because that would put you in a better position for finding a mate, and you would pass those genes on to your next generation, and so on and so forth. So if you can think of it, I know it sounds very simple to break it down into a new brain and an old brain like this, but if people can just grasp onto that concept, that metaphor, and then they can start to understand why sometimes we make irrational decisions, and why we even stick with them, and why we'll even have two contradictory decisions in our head, because it's the new brain and old brain, like that are kind of fighting back and forth. And some people call it cognitive dissonance. But the entire book was based on trying to teach people this hack, this using this metaphor, uh, because I mean the brain is very complex, and this is not exactly the way it works. I'm being very superficial in the way I cover it, but this would give people an 80 to 90% review of really how our brain works, and when we have to put the brakes on, switch gears, put that new brain into action, and say, okay, is this information I'm getting right now? Am I being manipulated? Am I being maybe told through AI, through targeted marketing, through, very charismatic leaders that, they're hitting those buttons, they're touching those old brain hot buttons that we like, and they're beating on them, and that releases endorphins, and we love it.
So the first thought that we have isn't always the right thought. Like we have to learn to better question our own thinking.
Yes, most of our first thoughts again go back to survival and reproduction. And
Right.
your first thought will be, if there's a rustle in the bush, your first thought, it better be that it's a threat. There could be a lion there or something. It's not just the wind,
Yeah.
and that's built into us through generations, because our ancestors that did that, they survived and reproduced. The ones who didn't have that didn't stick around very long. So all of these things again are built in from an evolutionary point of view. So we tend to, again, have a quick thought. We hold on to that thought. We get stubborn about it. And sometimes it's hard to dislodge it, even though we find out after the fact that it wasn't a threat. It was just a rustle in the wind, and we can let our guard down a little bit. And again, that's hard for people to do. And we see it in everything. We see it in marketing. We see it in business when we see it with our families and friends. And if you're a boss, a CEO, a president, you're dealing with people.
Yeah,
Just understanding this gives you a big advantage.
absolutely. And getting back to the AI and marketing
Mhm.
angle, if AI can write copy, predict behavior, automate campaigns, where does the human advantage live?
Absolutely. I mean, when you think about it, like AI uh, understands everything that I've just said way better than I'm explaining it. It's now getting so smart. It understands human behavior. It understands how the old brain and the new brain works, and it's playing to those things. And we have to be very, very careful and take those things into consideration uh, when we're presented with anything that is generated by AI, or we're approached by it could be a product, uh, it could be an advertiser, but it can also just be, like I said, it could be our local governments and national governments. They all use these same tricks, and they'll use AI to even tap into those old brain buttons that really let them, get a hold of us and rile us up and make us dig in on the way we think.
Absolutely. I mean, what happens to brands that lose that kind of emotional clarity?
Well, first of all, brands will, because the old brain, as I mentioned earlier, loves simplicity, and it does like fairness. I mean, it doesn't want to be treated like it's not fair. Uh, if it feels that you're not being straight with it, if it feels that you're being manipulated in any shape, way, or form, then you can lose a lot of support. That brand can suffer a lot, and that's why really strong brands are very, very, uh, most of their marketing is around making sure that that brand equity that they've built over years isn't affected. So, and sometimes that can happen. So, uh, brands have to be very, they have to be true. They have to talk to the heart. They have to talk to the gut. They have to make sure that they're following through on any promises they make, because as soon as the old brain feels that it might be getting manipulated, it'll turn on it really quickly. And that's where most strong brands will survive.
Yeah. Okay, final question. With all that you know about marketing and sales, what is one way we can be unstoppable in this AI world and stay true to our brand and be successful?
Well, again, I think it gets us down to just understanding how the old brain works and the new brain works. But if you're going to be, honest with people, you're going to lead with emotion, and hopefully that emotion is going to make people's lives better. And often with branding, it's not the product itself that is making the person better. It's the attributes that come with the brand. So, a luxury car, we can appreciate the craftsmanship, but it's the fact that it makes it's a status symbol. It makes us feel like we're successful, that we've really worked hard and we deserve this. And so those are all the benefits that that brand is giving us. And that's why when you watch most luxury car commercials, they'll never talk about the horsepower and the type of tires it has and all of the great features. It's really just going to show you a picture of somebody behind that wheel with looking very content and looking very successful, and that's what's going to attract people to that. And that's not manipulating, because that is a very true thing that we all desire, is that type of thing when it comes to. I'm just giving you one example. Other brands can be much more pragmatic. They're just trying to save you money, or save you effort, or save you time. All of those things are important as well to the old brain.
Wow, this has been just so interesting to learn about the old brain and new brain and your marketing genius. Where can people find more Paul Larche and your book and all that stuff?
Sure. Well, the book is available pretty much anywhere you buy books, on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, or and there's an audio version, and there's a paperback, and
And what
uh,
is the title so they
it's
can find
called
it?
it's called the I have a copy of it here. It's called the Divided Brain, and
Okay.
can you see that?
Yeah, the
And
divided
yeah,
brain.
yeah,
Got it.
and you can see the old brain and new brain circle, and it's getting some really good feedback and reviews, and particularly from business people, marketers, entrepreneurs, and anybody who's wants to just make sure that they're not going to be in a position with all of these chat bots and the control that AI is going to have to learn how to put the brakes on. And I call it really just changing gears and disengaging from the old brain and the new brain and letting your new brain do a little critical thinking. I talk about Occam's razor, where the simplest answer is usually the correct one. If you have to make a whole bunch of complex reasons to make your position make sense, then it's probably not right. So the book has a lot of those types of, again, helping hands in there. Again, I go back to the word hack because it's something that our people can easily understand and not have to think too hard about it for it to kick in.
Well, thanks for being a great guest on Whole CEO with Lisa G.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.